The end of the 60s was a period of scissors. In the second half of the 60s, young people began to fight against the conservative government, social conformity of the 50s, and the military intervention in Vietnam. This created a counterculture which led to the social revolution. Two different groups of revolutionary young people were against the US government. On the one hand, student activists who took part in social riots were gaining increased political prominence. They began a massive movement made at churches and universities. In the famous sittings, the students gathered outside the university and spent the whole night talking about the world problem. One of the student-led organizations was Students for a Democratic Society, focused on schools, and also important was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which fought against racism and for integration of public schools across the US.
On the other hand, the other youth movement that appears in the US was the hippie subculture, which quickly spread to other countries. The hippie movement started in San Francisco, California, and spread across the United States. During the 60s, the hippie impacted America with their way of life, and the early hippie ideology included the countercultural values of the Beat Generation. They used to create their own social groups and communities, listened to psychedelic music, were against the Vietnam War, supported the sexual revolution, and used drugs to explore alternative states of consciousness. They were characterized as being pacifists. Hippies' most famous moments were the Summer Love in San Francisco in 1967 and the Woodstock Festival held in New York in 1969. It lasted 3 days and was attended by lots of people. There weren't enough sanitary facilities for everybody. In August, New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller called festival organizer John Roberts and told him he was thinking of ordering 10,000 New York State National Guard troops to the festival. Roberts succeeded in persuading Rockefeller not to do this.
Another movement that took place in the 60s was the African American Civil Rights Movement, which asked for the end of racism towards African Americans and the voting rights in the southern states. In 1966, the Black Power movement wanted to include racial dignity, economical self-sufficiency, and freedom from oppression by white Americans. From 1955 to 1968, acts of nonviolent protest produced crisis situations between youth activists and the U.S. government. These protests included boycotts, like Montgomery bus boycott in Alabama, sit-ins like Greensboro in North Carolina, marches such as Selma to Montgomery marches in Alabama, and a wide range of other nonviolent activities. Due to the civil rights movement, in 1964 was written the Civil Rights Act banning color, race, or religion discriminations and established the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Immigration and Nationality Services Act of 1965, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968. African Americans re-entered politics in the South, and across the country, young people were inspired to action. During these times of fight to gain more civil rights, also there was an anti-war movement. For the first time, many people thought the U.S. intervention in the Vietnam War was a mistake. U.S. government sent around 500,000 American troops to support South Vietnam, and this ended with lots of deaths. This produced that many Americans, students overall, protested the involvement of the U.S. in Vietnam at the end of 1965. After that, a mass movement began rising on opposition to the Vietnam War, going out to the streets. The shooting of 4 anti-war student protesters led to nationwide university protests, and then riots broke out. In 1969, more than 2 million people participated in the Vietnam moratorium protests around the country. Militant protests, overall youth, continued to spread, leading many Americans to wonder whether the war was worth as peace strategy. The anti-war movement ended with Nixon's measures to blunt the movement, withdrawing U.S. troops from Vietnam after the Paris Peace Accords in 1973 and eventually ending drop course.
This is the dawning of the end.